At the time of recording this video, the GCSE and A-level exam season is in exactly 1 month. If you're watching this video, you might feel like you're cooked. There's only 28 days left until the exams and you haven't revised properly yet. Trust me, you're not cooked. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not going to stand here and sell you a dream and convince you that with just 1 hour a day you can get all 9s in just a month. But if you do the right things and sacrifice some other things and put in a lot of effort, you can make a lot of progress and maybe you could even clutch all 9s or all A stars. Now, I wanted to give a quick disclaimer. Over the past couple of months, I've been feeling like my videos have just been regurgitating the same information over and over again. Now, the reason for this is that getting the top grades is actually quite simple. You just need to follow the blueprint. But this video specifically will be different. Naturally, when you only have a month left, you're gonna have to switch things up a little bit. That being said though, this might be the last video I post of this nature, where I'm just standing in front of the camera giving you advice. Honestly, this is my 3rd year being on YouTube making this type of content, and it feels like I've said everything that needs to be said. So let me know in the comments what type of videos you'd like to see going forward. Anyways, here's exactly what I would do if I needed to lock in for the next month. Now, just to give you a quick rundown of how this video is going to go, we'll firstly talk about a very important concept that will help us later on, and then I'll give you the blueprint on how you could break up any subject into the 3 elements, and then for each element we're going to break down exactly how I would revise for that element for the next month, including sacrifices that you're going to need to make in the study routine to make the whole routine more efficient, because again, we only have a month. Firstly though, let's talk about a very important concept, Pareto's principle, also known as the 80-20 rule. Pareto's principle states that 80% of the results will come from 20% of the action. And in the context of GCSEs and A-levels, 80% of the marks that you get on any given exam will come from 20% of the studying that you did for that exam. In other words, if you only do that 20%, you guarantee 80% of the marks you'd usually get. As in, you can get 80% of the marks from 1/5 of the effort. But why stop there? We're trying to get all 9s or all A stars. And so let's increase it a bit. If we take that 20% and we do it 50% of the time or even 100% of the time, then all of a sudden we become way more efficient in our revision and we can guarantee the top grades with lower effort. Okay, so now that you know what the 80-20 rule is, now let's talk about how you can break up every single subject. Firstly, let's pull up this Venn diagram. Now, if you don't have a copy, you can get one, as well as a guide on how to use it that's completely free in the link in the description. Take every single subject that you study and place it on its appropriate position on this Venn diagram. Some common examples will include maths, which can go here, English, which would go here, and then the sciences, which would go here. I'm sure you get the idea. Go ahead and fill it out for every single subject that you take. All right, now we know exactly the elements that each subject is comprised of. Now let's talk about each element, how you'd revise for it normally, and then how you would revise for it if you only have a month left. Let's start with memorization. Usually for memorization, I recommend that someone makes notes and then they turn those notes into flashcards and then go through those flashcards at set intervals of time, as in every week or every 2 weeks. Now that technique I just mentioned is extremely effective because it combines active recall and spaced repetition really well. But unfortunately, we don't have that much time. What I would do instead if I only had a month is to completely skip making notes and instead go straight into making flashcards. When making flashcards, I try to keep them as concise as possible so I can get them done faster. And it goes without saying that you should absolutely be using digital flashcards, not physical flashcards. There's absolutely no time to be writing out every single card. We don't have that much time. We only have a month. Now, if you're really desperate, if you don't have that much time at all, and you want to make your studying more efficient, then you could go ahead and use pre-made flashcards. However, I do not recommend this at all. A lot of the learning happens when you make the flashcards because that's when you first actively revise the content. When you're making your own flashcards, you first go through a textbook or a video, you look at that content, you digest it, and then you summarize it in your own words. But if you're using pre-made flashcards, you're not digesting the information the same way you would have been if you were making your own flashcards. You're really at the mercy of the person making the flashcards. That's why it should only be used as a last resort. All right, that was memorization. Now let's talk about problem solving. Now, problem solving is extremely simple. All you have to do, just do as many practice questions as possible. But then how do we alter it to make it more efficient? Because we only have a month, remember? Well, there's one thing you could do to make practice questions even more efficient. And that is a technique that I call not doing the questions fully. If I was short on time and I was trying to cram in as many practice questions as possible, I'm not going to sit around and do practice questions in exam conditions, unless it's a day or 2 before the exam. Instead, I would do practice questions with the mark scheme open. And then every time I would struggle with a question, I'd give myself 10 seconds. If I don't figure it out in 10 seconds, I immediately look at the mark scheme and figure out where I went wrong and then redo the question. Now that saves a lot of time, compared to just sitting around and for 5 minutes trying to figure out where you went wrong in this complete the square question or integrating a random function. Now that was problem solving. Now let's talk about the trickiest element. Essay writing. Now, usually the way you'd improve at essay writing is actually quite similar to problem solving. You just do as many practice questions as possible. And usually on top of that, you'd figure out the exact structure needed for each type of question. And also you'd get as much feedback as possible from your teachers. That being said though, if I only had a month and I was trying to improve as much as possible, here's exactly how I would switch it up. Firstly, I would scour the internet for model essays on each type of question and each topic that could come up. Now that's quite easy for English Lit and English Lang because there's a lot of resources out there. But for more niche subjects like economics, for example, you might need to get more creative. You might need to use ChatGPT instead. Now, once I have all of my model essays, I would then condense them down into bullet points. GPT can also do that for you. Now, having them as bullet points will really allow me to get familiar with the main essence of the essay without having to memorize a whole essay. Now, of course, you don't have to memorize every single bullet point word for word, but you should be familiar with the main points that you would include in an essay about every single topic. Now, once you have the bullet points, again, you do as many practice essays as possible, and you try to get feedback from as many teachers as possible as well. Now, this point I specifically talk about a lot, which is when you get more feedback, you can implement more for every single practice essay than you do. And also, since essay writing subjects are more likely to be subjective, that means that whatever the teachers agree on, you know that that's the core stuff that you need to improve. That's the most important stuff. Like we said before, that's the 20%. Now, putting aside academics and studying, there's still gonna have to be other sacrifices that you make. Just for the next month, delete TikTok and Instagram off your phone. I can guarantee you that within just 1 week, you would experience a different level of locking in. I'll be honest, it almost feels like a cheat code. Now, of course, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, but sacrificing your sleep and exercise is just dumb. Don't do it. If you sacrifice sleep and exercise thinking that you're gonna have more time to study, don't be surprised when you underperform on the actual exam because you're just sleep deprived or you don't have that mental clarity. Now, there's only 1 month left, as I've repeated many times in this video, and a lot of you might still be unsure on exactly how to approach this month. And there's no time to be doing trial and error when it comes to your study technique. So if you want to guarantee the top grades, then check out the ultimate guide to acing your GCSEs and A-levels. Not only do you get a personalized study plan based on your subject and a video program that will guide you through every single step that you need to take over the next month to get the top grades, we're also running weekly Q&A sessions until the end of the exam season. So if you ever have a question or you're stuck, you don't really know how to revise for a certain subject, you just come through and you ask. Now, for the next 7 days only, we're running a 20% discount on the already discounted price for those of you who are struggling with their revision. Click the first link in the description and sign up now before the discount ends.